All right, we got it. It's Jen Reedy, licensed clinical social worker, and today I have,
Jennifer Nash-Naiyer, licensed marriage family therapist.
and I'm just playing. It's not that today I got her every day. Actually, she's got me. So
Not in this office.
Oh, that's
Right,
true.
we go to.
That's true. This is my office today. I'm in Upland, and I had the joy of being with Jennifer last week in her Rancho office. So that's cool. So today we're going to talk about self-care.
Yeah. So we hear a lot about self-care. I know as therapists, it's kind of, people will talk about self-care, will tell clients to use self-care. But sometimes it's kind of like, what does that even mean?
Sure, and I think the idea out there is that self-care is a luxury, right? I'm too busy taking care of my kids, or I gotta go to work, and there's doctor's appointments and all those other
It doesn't
stuff.
really fit.
Yeah, so how can I take care of myself when I've got to take care of everything else around me?
Doesn't feel practical.
I like that. Doesn't feel practical.
Feels like it's just fitting one more thing into a schedule that doesn't feel like there's a lot of room to it.
For sure. So should we talk today about us and how we fit our self-care routine into the lives that we have? What do you think would be helpful for
Yeah,
us?
I think we can give examples
Okay.
of what we feel has worked for self-care, and then maybe some examples that we know of with other people, or just
Okay.
we're kind of the style that we're going to go with today is have an intention and kind of go with a theme, and then just kind of create wherever we go, we're going to go.
We're going to meander today.
Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit of it.
Okay, so self-care. So tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about your self-care that you do.
Well, so it came up just yesterday. I found myself just feeling really kind of blah, and kind of just like everything seemed to take more energy than normal. And at first glance, I just was kind of confused. It got pretty strong. The feeling, I think, got pretty strong enough to where it kind of took me out of my normal kind of just way of going through the day. And I started to think about, what have I let go of that has been helpful for me in the past as far as self-care. And so I was kind of going through the check marks, and like, well, there's exercising, of course, and I like to jog. I hadn't been doing that for a little while. And then there's, I'd been on a pretty, well, it was kind of a strict eating plan, but it really kind of did a lot of good in my body. I could feel that. And I kind of, I think a lot of us, when we do kind of a strict eating plan, there can be a period afterwards where we kind of go, I deserve this overindulgence. So I think that has started to happen, where I may have been eating, I wasn't being so conscious with my eating. And so it just kind of took me down this path of, okay, what do I know helps me? And then it was kind of like, why am I not doing it?
Oh, that's some very key points. And I heard you say that you address the physical side of yourself as far as healthy eating to nourish your body, as well as the exercise. And you also,
That's what I knew was missing.
the missing part of it. And you had addressed right there at the end that there was an obstacle to that. So what is your obstacle to self-care?
I think usually it's kind of what we talked about at the beginning, the perception that I don't really have the time, or kind of that, because when you're in need of self-care, oftentimes you don't have the motivation.
Yes.
You're kind of in that place of not wanting to.
Yeah.
And the idea of jogging, especially with kind of the heat wave that we're having, we start to make a little bit more excuses, I think, or kind of doing the comforting things that don't really amount to long-term relief or balance.
Yeah, that we put roadblocks in our way, and then when we put them in the way, they're like, oh, there's roadblocks there, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, or I don't want to.
I don't want to do anything about it. Yeah.
Even though we know, because I know in my brain and in my body and in my heart that if I were to even go back to jogging one time, that feeling afterwards is just awesome.
Yeah.
Like it just really feels like, wow, I did something that may not have been completely comfortable to me, but yeah, it really gives me a boost.
And I have to imagine it's remembering that boost and remembering that moment so that when that block comes in the way the next time, it's capitalizing that and saying, wait, but I remember that did feel good for me and I want to keep it going. A lot of times it seems like it's a momentum piece to it.
Very true.
Yeah.
So what do you, like when you think about your self-care, what are the things that you go to? And when do you know that you need it?
Well, you know, that's a really good point. I'm a pretty relational person, meaning that sometimes I lose the insight myself to what I need, but I'm very respective of hearing the people in my life, like my husband or my mom and dad in particular, give me that feedback and saying, hey, you know what, you're dealing with a lot of thoughts today, let's get out of the house, let's
that's nice.
go to Starbucks.
So you have reminders
Yeah,
people.
I do, because I am one of those people that struggles with just remembering to do it myself, or maybe my voice isn't enough, my inner voice isn't enough to compel me to do it, but if I get reinforcement from the people in my life to help me, then that often feels good, and that's the push that I do.
So I would think that it would have to be a really trusted relationship to do that, because have you ever had when someone kind of, when you talk about feeling, oh, I just feel so bad, I haven't, or I just am not feeling good, well, why don't you go jog?
Yeah, who are you? Why don't you just go jog?
Exactly.
Sure.
You jog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true, but there's extra credence given to the people in
that
my
know
life
you and
who
care
know.
about you.
Well, that speaks to, you know, maybe part of self-care is having a support system or getting a support system in your life.
I really like that. Yeah, that talks about even kind of self-care going into the decisions that we make about who we spend our time with, or who we even allow into our space. So boundaries.
Sure, boundaries. Boundaries.
Yeah, so that even speaks to when we have someone in, whether it's in our families or friends that we have, where it takes a lot of energy to be with them for whatever reason. So afterwards realizing, okay, is there, self-care can be kind of, how do I set a boundary with how much time I'm able to spend with this person? Rather than, oh, I've got to, they're in my family, there's an obligation.
True.
Kind of finding that right balance for yourself.
Balance, that's really important, because you're right, sometimes we can't get out of obligations, that's why they're obligated there, but that doesn't mean that we have to completely let go of our control and our boundaries and just let it kind of wash over and be, you know, victims of it. Self-care can be maintaining that control that you have to say, you know, I'm obligated to go spend time with my extended family or in-laws, but here is the things that's important to me to keep in mind and keep time limited so that I can feel good about myself even though I have to go through this.
So you're part of the equation. So self-care being where you sometimes say no. So being able to say no is a big self-care. But then also, you talk about the times when there isn't really an option to say no, or you value kind of the end result of the, like if you don't really want to go to a family function, but you know that it's something that you have committed to do.
Commitments, right.
And so doing that because it speaks to a value of your own, like that you, keep your commitment or your responsibility or whatever.
Sure, and that can, and identifying that that's a strength of yours, that even though you don't want to keep the commitments that you do, that makes sense. And you had said right prior to us recording today something about self-care means saying yes as well as saying no. Can you talk a little bit more about that? That was fascinating.
Yeah, because I was thinking also, again, in this little rut that I've found myself in, I was thinking sometimes, because I was thinking, what do I need? Do I need more pleasure-oriented activities?
Okay.
Do I need more space from people in my life? Do I need more time off? What do I need? And then I kind of thought, there's tasks that I've put off because, they don't feel comfortable all the time.
Oh,
So like maybe in private practice, one of the things to do is to meet the people in your neighborhood to let them know that you're there and that you're of service to them. But I'm an introvert, so that kind of scares me. So I was kind of thinking as self-care could also be really kind of committing and going out of my comfort zone to feel that sense of accomplishment and so I had never thought of self-care as that kind of thing, but sometimes it's going out of our comfort zone to accomplish something that we know is going to be in our best interest.
Oh, that's true, and you're hitting on a point that I don't think a lot of articles about self-care or books about self-care hit on. The idea that I've heard is, you take time away, right? You go on a jog yourself, or you take a bubble bath.
Bubble bath, that's a good one.
I
Spa,
always, right?
Massage,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Yes. But the idea is that sometimes it may be paying attention to the things that you need, and when you address those needs and get that taken care of, there's a lot of relief that comes inside.
Yeah.
And then from there you can focus on those wants.
Right.
Like I may not be able to take that massage because that's a want, because I need to go do groceries. So self-care may be recognizing need to do groceries and then get that done, feel that relief, so I can move on to the next thing.
So taking care of your business.
Taking care of business.
Yes.
Taking care of business.
And that reminds me, I went to the dentist this morning, which for me it's kind of a fear-based relationship where, and we were kind of talking about this, it's just not necessarily one of my favorite things to do. For me, that was, obviously when you go to the dentist and they're taking care of anything that needs to be taken care of, that in itself is self-care.
Yep.
But then it's also, for me, I think part of it too is really kind of valuing myself and going past the fear and being okay. Yeah, you know what? I don't know that I'll ever be able to go to the dentist and not feel a sense of anxiety or fear, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Sure.
And I guess that's another aspect of taking care of your business.
Absolutely. Taking care of things, and so you're not avoiding. So possibly self-care means taking a look at what am I avoiding in life, and how can I reflect on why it would be a good thing for me to not avoid that anymore.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm thinking of this, this is another thing where, a lot of us, or maybe not as many, but there's a room in my house that has a lot of my stuff in it.
Oh, tell me about that room.
Yeah, that room it has a lot of papers, it has a lot of different things, and I kind of use it as my closet. So that, behind closed doors, I don't feel real comfortable having it there, but I think that is also something that, while it would seem like self-care would be like, you know what, you go get a massage, or sometimes it's about really, again, taking care of business and cleaning up our messes.
Oh, ooh, you hit on something there, and that's pretty metaphorical too. That there's not just, our basic physical needs in our environment, and taking care of that mess in our environment can help us feel good, declutter our world, so we're decluttering our mind. But the idea that there's just some messy stuff that just happens in our life, and how do we go about fixing that or tweaking it so maybe the mess is still there, but maybe instead of all over the floor, it's in a little corner so that we can take care of ourselves.
Right. Or by chunk, we're kind of stabbing at it
Right.
and not turning away from it. And that also reminds me that therapy
Yeah.
to kind of help with the metaphorical messes, right? And even as therapists, I'm a huge proponent. I mean, I guess it would make sense because I'm a therapist, but I also am I love to be a therapy client.
Yeah.
And I love to go to my own therapist when I feel like things seem a bit overwhelming, or what you were talking about, sometimes just kind of forgetting about not really being clued into what's going on within us, and having a safe place to
Process and
Yeah.
vent. Yeah, and I work primarily with kids, but when I work with kids, I of course work with the parents. And one of the main things that comes up is that, you know, if your kids are stressed, you're stressed too, and there's probably a lot of stressors in your life, and that even though you're doing your best work to help your kids, that there's a lot of need for you to get your own help. And I found that it's been really hard for the moms and the dads that I work with to feel like they can do that for themselves, that they've got to get their kids fixed first. But it all relates to each other. I know that your kids would very much want you to get the help that you need and support that you need, because that would help them too. It's very cyclical, this idea of self-care.
And that reminds me of the kind of definition when I asked you before we started taping, what would you say is the definition of self-care, and what did you say?
I said taking care of yourself. It's kind of the most basic Webster's dictionary version of it. Is there's lots of things that we take care of, right? We take care of our homework assignments, we take care of getting to our job and getting that paycheck, but what does self mean? What does taking care of who we are and what we are and all our roles and needs and wants in our life needs to be addressed too. But it's not so concrete, right? It's not so much in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of something that I had seen the other day that was, because I think a lot of you touched on it with women. We're women, so I can only speak as a woman at this point, but and I would say that probably across the board this might be a thing, but particularly with women, where we feel like a sense of that everyone else has to come first. And so there was something that I read that it was, you know, taking care of yourself or self-care is not me first, it's me too. And I just loved that because I thought, a lot of times we don't even put ourselves in the equation, and that's where we get into these places that feel so kind of just disconnected sometimes, feel very isolated because we are not acknowledging what we need to fill ourselves up to even be able to serve.
Yeah, that's
people in our
that's
lives.
a light bulb moment for me. The idea that me too, right? I matter as much as you matter.
Yeah.
And it's not 50-50. It's 100.
It's not that I matter
100.
more. It's that I do matter.
Yeah, I matter as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right.
What a conversation we had today.
Yes.
It's always
Thank you
a
so
joy.
much for having me.
Of course, it's always a joy, and I look forward to you coming back for more conversations. And of course, everybody watching out there, please come back too. And
Yes.
let us know. Type in the comments either on Facebook or YouTube. Shoot us an email. What you'd like to hear about.
I'd love that.
We'll talk about it for sure.
All right. Bye.
Bye.